I'm Johnny Cash. No, I'm not. I'm Trace Savage, and I am here to moderate this debate tonight, and I'd love for folks to find their seats. We're getting ready to begin, and we're going to need a little more laughter than that at my bad jokes if we can get started. Hey, like I said, I'm Trace Savage of Non-Doc Media. I'm here on stage with Aaron Christie of KJRH to moderate this debate tonight. They must be pouring drinks strong at the Cain's Ballroom Bar. Listen, the live stream is up right now on kjrh.com. This is a little bit of a soft open, so you have time to get that live stream, share it on social media, text it to your friends now.
And we are recording tonight's debate for air on Channel 2. It's going to be at 9 o'clock at night on Thursday, August 15th. And we want to thank our partners, Non-Doc, and the Tulsa Regional Chamber for making this event possible.
Let's give the Tulsa Chamber a round of applause for believing in public debates, responsible discussions, and for trusting media like us to lead these public debates. I'd also like to thank the other sponsors of Non-Doc's broader 2024 debate series, the State Chamber of Oklahoma and AARP Oklahoma. Give them a round of applause.
So once you have found the live stream, you've texted it to your friends, told everyone about it, we want you to silence your phones, make sure your ringers are off. You don't want to be the one that we all stare at when the ringer goes off in the middle of the debate.
Right, and speaking of the audience, it would be awesome to have silence. That was pretty good. And we want to have some time for you to clap, so we've got 3 rounds of questions tonight. At the end of each round, just hold your applause till then. We can give everybody a big round of applause. I will say this, we need people to be respectful. Don't shout things from the audience. If you do, we'll have security remove you from the audience. If we can't get everybody to behave reasonably, we will stop the debate, we will clear the room and wait and resume the debate after everybody's out. But I think we can avoid that, right?
I would hope so. Pretty wild bunch we have tonight. So let's welcome tonight's debate participants to the stage in alphabetical order. Please welcome Karen Keith, Monroe Nichols, and Brent Van Norman.
Thank you so much to each of you for being here. Let's just do a quick mic check for each of you. A test 1, 2, Mr. Van Norman.
Test 1, 2.
Commissioner.
Good evening.
Representative.
Test 1, 2.
Wonderful, thank you so much. All right, that should be the conclusion of this soft opening for our debate. We're gonna have about 5 seconds of silence before we kick this thing off. If it helps you to think about being grateful and thankful for something, do that. While I'm on this stage, if I can quote the legendary Ray Wiley Hubbard and say that the days I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations are good days. Hello and welcome to the Tulsa Two-Step, a debate between top candidates who want to be the next mayor of Tulsa. My name is Trace Savage. I'm the editor-in-chief of nondoc.com, an independent journalism publication based here in Oklahoma. I'm here at Cain's Ballroom to moderate this debate with Aaron Christie of 2 News, Oklahoma.
Thank you, Trace. So excited to be here at the historic Cain's Ballroom with Tulsa's top mayoral candidates. According to recent polling, County Commissioner Karen Keith, State Representative Monroe Nichols, and businessman Brent Van Norman.
Although 7 candidates filed to run for mayor of Tulsa this year, we had to set a competitive threshold for participation in this 1-hour debate. Each candidate either needed to achieve public polling showing at least 10% support or verifiable campaign fundraising of $50,000. While candidates Casey Bradford, John Jolly, Caleb Hoosier, and Paul Tay did not prove those marks by last week's deadline, I have offered them an opportunity to answer a series of questions in writing that will be published on nondoc.com between now and the August 27th election.
If no candidate receives more than 50% of the vote August 27th, the Tulsa mayoral race will head to a November runoff. The same electoral schedule applies to Tulsa's 9 city council seats.
Make sure you're voting. Aaron, we've got to thank our other partner who cares about voting tonight at the debate. The Tulsa Regional Chamber is making this possible. I truly appreciate your value of Tulsa, of public debates for this community. Thank you so much. Here's tonight's format. Each candidate will have 2-minute opening statements. We'll have 3 rounds of questions, and then we'll conclude with 2-minute closing statements. We drew numbers earlier to determine the order. It'll be the same for opening and same for closing. Without further ado, Mr. Van Norman, you are going first. 2-minute opening statement to you. Our timekeepers are there in the middle.
Great. Well, thank you for being here tonight. And I want to start off by asking you a question. And that is, do you envision Tulsa being 5 years from now? Here's my vision. I believe Tulsa will be a vibrant business community. We will be attracting a lot of new business to Tulsa. Existing businesses will be growing faster than they can imagine. That's going to create a number of new jobs, great paying jobs that will not only help families make it, but it will help them buy homes. It will help them thrive. Secondly, I think our public schools in 5 years will be ranked at the top of the state, if not the very top. Third, I think our streets will be free of debris, and our sidewalks will be free of debris, and the streets will no longer be the enemy to your tires. You'll feel safe outside your home. You'll feel safe leaving your home. You'll feel safe navigating around town because crime will have been reduced significantly. And lastly, when we talk about homelessness, we'll talk about it in the past tense. That's my vision. It's a big vision, and I believe it's going to require a pro-business conservative leader. My opponents on this stage tonight are both liberal Democrats. They're great people. They're wonderful to be around. They're well-intended, but their policies will lead us toward being the next Seattle, the next Portland, the next Minneapolis, or the next San Francisco. I'm different from that. My background is, and in looking at the background, you have to remember that we have a $1 billion budget and over 3,500 employees as the city of Tulsa. My background is I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA. I was a pastor. I've been an attorney, and I've worked with 3 different businesses, a title insurance company, an investment fund, and a software company. And so the question comes, is it better to have a business person or a politician leading Tulsa into the future? I believe we can be that shining city on a hill. I commit to that, and that will be the focus of my campaign, and that will be the focus of me being mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Keith, let's hold those applauses if we can. Commissioner Keith, 2 minutes to you, opening statement.
First of all, thank you all so much for being here, because you know what that tells me is you love this city as much as I do. Now, I want to talk about where I come from, 26 years in broadcast. And then I went to work for Mayor Bill LaFortune because I was scared to death of what our downtown looked like. It was absolutely dead. And I went there and begged for a job so I could work on what would become Vision 2025. It was successful. We got the BOK Center, and we got a housing fund that would convert these old apartment buildings into, actually convert the business buildings into amazing apartment buildings. And now we have all these people living downtown. It was absolutely transformative. After that, I went to work as a county commissioner for 16 years, and I have loved this job. And I'm proud of the work we've done to build the levees. And in cooperation with the chamber, the One Voice program, we were able to secure $137 million in federal funds, and then this spring, again with their help, another $50 million from the state. Worked on the Gilcrease Expressway. That was a statewide project. It included federal funds as well. We called it All the Colors of Money, and now it's a beautiful facility. And then I worked to do an industrial park. It's in a very challenged census tract up near the Turnpike toll gate. And I'm very proud that it is full and it's just absolutely thriving. And I've done all this work because I work across party lines. If you're partisan, it's very hard to get this work done. So my vision is safe neighborhoods, well-maintained streets, and affordable housing, because no one should call our streets home. I'm really proud to have the endorsements of the FOP and our firefighters, and I am ready on day one to lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Representative Nichols, 2 minutes opening statement to you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for being here. I want to first just thank my mother, Ramona Curtis, and my son, Gavin Nichols, for being here this evening. Really appreciate y'all being here. And I want to point them out because for us, this is a little bit of the family business, public service. And as such, for a year, I've been running for mayor here in Tulsa. And from the very start, I've talked about 4 priorities that I think are critical to Tulsa's future. One is ending homelessness as we know it. 2 is working every day to redefine the mayor's role in education to improve student outcomes. 3, expanding our local economy by strengthening our workforce. And 4, making this the safest big city in the country. And every single day, we've talked about just doing just that. We haven't talked about things that might happen or things that could happen. We've talked about things that we're gonna make happen, and we're gonna make sure that we're accountable in getting it done. What I believe that Tulsa has more potential than any other community in the country. I also know that potential will never be reached unless we dispose of some of these challenges that are nipping at our heels. These are stubborn challenges. I respect them. It's not easy, but I ain't afraid of them either. And I'm ready to serve as mayor of the city. It's built on 8 years in the legislature. It's built on my time in the mayor's office. It's built on my time at one of our sponsors here tonight at the Tulsa Regional Chamber. I have the experience, the broad experience to do this job. I have a plan and a vision, unlike my opponents, on what and how we're gonna move Tulsa forward. And at the end of the day, we talk about endorsements. I've been endorsed by a former mayor. I've been endorsed by 2 former governors. I've been endorsed by teachers. The people who have done jobs and jobs like this, the people who are depending on somebody to be their fighter in the mayor's office, guess who they endorsed? They've endorsed me. And it's not because they've known me the longest, but because they know that I'm committed to getting the job done for Tulsa.
Thank you very much, Representative. We're going to go to our first round of questions tonight. We're on the clock. It's titled The Center of Your Universe, and we're going to ask you questions about this job you're seeking. We will each have a minute to answer each question. We'll rotate who answers first. We'll start alphabetically. Commissioner Keith, I have a question for you. You are running to succeed Mayor G.T. Bynum. What from his legacy in office will you try to carry forward, and what would you like to see done differently?
Well, I definitely have different ideas about how I would like to do things, but I'm also very proud of how he navigated us through some very difficult times. We stood side by side during the flood in 2019, and then during issues with COVID. We tried to navigate that the best that we could, but he was a good leader for us during that time period. I love how he has made this a welcoming city. And for folks who say it's a sanctuary city, it is not a sanctuary city. A welcoming city means that we embrace those who are here, we work with them, and we uplift them. And I want to continue those policies and then work on some new things that will help lift our city. And also, I want to engage with all of you for your vision. What is next for Tulsa? We'll work on that together.
Representative Nichols, same question to you. What from Mayor Bynum's legacy would you try to carry forward, and what specifically would you like to see done differently? 60 seconds.
Thank you. You know, the one thing I'll say, outside of any policy area, that I appreciate most about the mayor is he's done all these things over the years, and it's hard serving in office. It's hard serving in office, particularly as a dad. And so I appreciate him always making sure that he's taking care of the things with his family and those types of things. I understand, you know, raising Gavin, how tough that can be, and I appreciate that, and that's something that I'll always remember fondly about GT's time in office and the example he set navigating some challenging times as a parent. I will say the thing that I would do differently. We have something called the Tulsa Equality Indicators, and I thank Mayor Bynum for taking leadership and making sure that Tulsa's tracking where we are. But it's time we stop admiring those problems and do something about it, and that's the reason why the plan that I have right here for my plan as mayor is all dependent on not just looking at those numbers, but making sure we're doing things every day to change them.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Norman, 60 seconds to you, same question. What from Mayor Bynum's legacy will you carry forward? What do you want to do differently?
Well, I appreciate the fact that he has tried to work to bring people together. I think the Beyond Apology Group and their report, it will lead us forward, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for the leadership that he took in that. I would go 180 degrees on the welcoming city issue because I believe it's one step toward a sanctuary city. We live in a constitutional republic. There's something called the rule of law, and we have to follow the law. And my understanding of a welcoming city is that we're picking and choosing laws to follow. There's a democratic process. If you want to change the law, you can change the law. But to say we're going to ignore the law is a very dangerous precedent to set, and so I would certainly not want to continue down that path.
Thank you very much. Aaron, you have the next. Let's hold those applause really quick. We were on a time crunch. Aaron, you have the next question.
We're going to move on to the next question, and this is for Representative Nichols. First, for this question, I want you to answer two things. Considering your background and personality, what most qualifies you to be mayor of Tulsa? And secondly, what is the biggest challenge facing the city as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start with, I've now spent the last 8 years in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. Before that, I co-founded an organization called Impact Tulsa, all about making sure we guarantee a high-quality education for every child in Tulsa County. Before that, I ran the Chamber's Business Retention Expansion Program, spending every day thinking about what do we have to do to grow small businesses and make sure we're expanding the economy. Before that, I worked at Career Tech, investing in workforce areas. Before that, I was Chief of Staff to the President at OU Tulsa, and as we were trying to narrow the gap on community health. And before that, I worked in the mayor's office, and when I was in the mayor's office, we took what was a over-budget hole in the ground, the BOK Center, and we turned it into a world-class facility, thereby revitalizing downtown. I've had the experience at the state, at the city, at the chamber, in higher education, and I'm the only person who has that broad of experience in this race. I think homelessness is number one. I talked about it at the very top. I think it's number one on everybody's mind, and it's the issue that we've committed to ending by 2030.
Okay. Mr. Van Norman, same question, 60 seconds.
Yeah, so I think a 40-year business career in which I've had the opportunity to lead large organizations. I've had as many as 20 direct reports before, managed multiple hundreds of people from time to time. And so I think that experience in both accounting, as a pastor, and as an attorney, and having run organizations, I think will serve the city well. It has a $1 billion budget, it has 3,500 employees. It really needs a CEO, and that's the skill set that I bring to the table in doing that. Homelessness is certainly a huge issue. It's something I want to tackle, but I think the city needs to become business friendly. We have too many times where we don't treat you like the customer, and we need to treat you like the customer. We need to streamline processes. The permitting process takes way too long right now. We need to compress that so that you can't say that we are open for business if you can't open a business. And so I commit to making Tulsa the business friendliest place on earth.
Commissioner Keith, 60
All right.
seconds.
So I have longevity in my jobs because I duly true work at them, and I duly true move the needle. And I also have relationships. I have relationships with the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, with the city councilors, and with a mayor that has to engage with city councilors. That's the only way we can all work and move this city forward. I also have relationships with the head of ODOT, the head of the Turnpike Authority, and I know who to call when I need help. I also work well with our federal delegation, as you all know, and our state legislators. That's how you get things done. It's not putting something on a piece of paper. I know how to collaborate. I know how to work with people, bring the best minds together to solve problems. I'm not going to say I've written down, I've got a plan that's going to work for everybody, and I'm the only one weighing in on that. That's not the case. I know how to bring the best folks to mind because we do need to solve problems like permitting, and we need to solve problems like our homeless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Norman. Next question for you, 60 seconds. In your opinion, what are the three most important duties of being the mayor of Tulsa?
Well, first of all, the mayor is the CEO of the city. It's an executive role. I think the first thing is you have to surround yourself with very good people, very talented people. The mayor cannot do it by himself or herself. You have to have other great people around you. The second thing I think you need to do is you need to assess every area of the city. You need to assess the departments that are out there. You need to see, are they really productive? Are they bringing benefit to the residents in our community? Or have they been around for a long time and they're not truly serving a useful purpose? And then once you do that assessment, you establish priorities and you follow those priorities. And in this case, I think, again, the priorities are going to be, one, being business friendly, second, addressing public safety, and third, helping and coming alongside our school system.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Keith, same question to you. What are the three most important duties of being mayor?
I think it's working with our employees to make sure that they interface with you as the citizens to get the jobs done that they need to do. And that would be in particular about permitting and inspections department, because we do have issues with development. And I'm so thankful that Mr. Van Norman has adopted my plank. So I am. I will also be working to build a very positive workforce. And sometimes it takes training to turn the ship. So I will be heavily involved in that as well, and also in community engagement. As the CEO of a city, you've got to engage with the community, and that means also listening to your city councilors. They are the boots on the ground, and they will help decide what we need to do to get things done.
Thank you very much. We borrow these podiums from OSU, so let's not break them.
Yeah.
Representative Nichols, 60 seconds to you.
Yeah, no, I'd agree the number one job of a mayor is CEO of an organization of almost 3,000 employees and making sure that building works well. You can't meet any of the goals that I talked about at the top of this debate without that organization being a well-oiled machine. I think also you got to be a strong ambassador for this community and talk about not only the bad things that are happening, but the great things that are happening and making sure that those great things are true for everybody that lives here. And I think that's an important role for a mayor. And third, I think you got to be a defender of your community. When somebody picks on your public schools, when somebody calls teachers terrorists, you defend your community and you don't make any apologies about it. And so I think CEO, ambassador, and defender is the role of a mayor, and I'm looking forward to being just that guy.
Thank you, Representative. Just to the audience, if you hoot and holler while they're talking, the people watching online can't hear. Okay, we are going to end round one with our first toss-up question of the night. It means everybody gets 30 seconds. Whoever gets to go first, it's up to you. Aaron.
We've heard Tulsa business leaders say the mayor must be a great partner for economic development, someone who can prioritize being available when business prospects come to town, someone who can effectively advocate and navigate the bureaucracy of City Hall. So here is your toss-up. How do you convince Tulsa's economic development community you are the partner they seek? Anyone can answer first, 30 seconds.
Because they know me. They know that I will be at the ready when they need me to go on some of these economic development trips. It's what I like to do. I love to sell this city because it is such an amazing place for us to be. And I can't wait to bring people here and show them all the great things that we have, from the gathering place to all of our districts downtown. But I will be at the ready, and they know me. They know they can count on me.
30 seconds.
Yeah, so for me, I've done road shows before. When I worked for the investment fund that I'm still on the board of, I literally went around and I made presentations on the fund and raised over $100 million for the fund by giving road shows and presentations. I know that the chamber would love to have someone with a business background and business acumen to go out, because I know how to attract business. I've invested in business. And so that characteristic, that quality will instill confidence that the city needs.
Representative, 30 seconds to you, please. 30 seconds, Representative.
Well, I used to be one of them, actually. And so I'll be excited about being in the chamber and getting back into the economic development world as a mayor. But what I think the business community would appreciate most about me is those 4 priorities. I'm going to end homelessness as we know it. I'm going to improve student outcomes so our workforce is strong. I'm going to make this the safest big city in the country. I'm going to make sure the economic development community in this city has something to sell for every business looking for a home, no matter where in the country they are today.
That's the end of round one. Now give them all a round of applause. Hoot and holler for your heart's delight. They're still pouring strong drinks, apparently, at Canes. They were on to round two. Aaron's got the first question here. This is titled Safe at Home. We're going to dive into some policy topics. Aaron, another toss-up.
We begin with a toss-up. We need some Wheel of Fortune music, I think, Trace. Where were you with that? There's been a lot of talk about how to address homelessness in Tulsa. Trace and I hear from citizens who say all that talk hasn't brought up enough action. A recent poll found homelessness to be the top issue concerning Tulsans, so your toss-up is, what is the first action you would take as mayor on the topic of homelessness? You have 30 seconds to answer. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to. Well, first of all, homelessness is not primarily a housing issue. It is a drug addiction issue, and it is a mental health issue. And while there is a housing component to it, people do have to have shelter or they won't show up for appointments. I was just at God's Shining Light, which is a phenomenal ministry. They just bought a motel with 109 apartments. I would come alongside those. They're going to house a lot of people. They're going to give them counseling, and they're going to bring people off the streets to become productive members of our society.
So
Go ahead, sorry.
I would be tackling the permitting and inspection issue, because our developers working in the affordable housing space cannot get these projects done in a timely manner. It costs too much money and it takes too long. So that's an important piece for us to fix so that we can get more affordable housing out of the ground. I will be working closely with our mental health providers, and I celebrate that our firefighters are working with Family and Children's Services and meeting our homeless where they are on the streets.
Representative Nichols, 30 seconds to you.
Great. Hey, look, I already have a plan that ends homelessness by 2030. I'm excited about it, so I don't have to sit up here and try to make up stuff on the spot. But it starts with the mayor's office becoming, by appointing somebody so we become the chief convener and mobilizer of our citywide response to homelessness. It goes to us making sure we are working every day to reduce evictions, building a strong, coordinated system of mental health and substance abuse supports, and finally, rapidly increasing our affordable housing stock. We have a plan to do 2,000 units every year to 2028, so we make sure we get on top of this crisis.
Thank you very much, Representative. I've got the next question for you. For the next 3 questions, we're going to go 75 seconds for each candidate to answer each question. We're going to dive a little bit more into policy. Representative, I want you to describe your understanding of North Tulsa real estate development, north of Interstate 244, let's say. Land records show frequent real estate activity in North Tulsa for a community that has experienced decades of inadequate resource development. But as big projects have filled in the downtown area here, just south of I-244, that prosperity has mostly trickled north only in terms of land speculation. As a result, many people feel like North Tulsa is getting shortchanged while housing, offices, restaurants, and retail boom just a mile or two away. So describe North Tulsa's situation and tell us something you will do to address the vast inequalities and inequities separated by I-244.
Yeah, great question. And I've now for the last 8 years in part represented portions of North Tulsa, and so this is something that is near and dear to me. And I remember when I was knocking doors in 2016, I would go and I would knock around the neighborhood, and I would notice there were some really nice, maybe kind of small houses next to some blighted properties. These properties where the titles were unclear and it was not clear about what we could do about it. You go and you call, we don't know how to do anything about it. And so in the legislature, there are a couple things that I got busy doing. First, I passed a bill to expand the affordable housing tax credit. Before I got elected, if you were in Tulsa and a developer, you were not eligible for the tax credit at that point. Secondly, we've worked every year, I've got it out of the House every single year, can't get it out, we haven't got it out of the Senate, a bill that would give the city new tools in rapidly taking care of and claiming the titles on those blighted properties. My plan for North Tulsa is to make sure we get that done. We start to take control of these neighborhoods to revitalize them, and we make what was once a blighted property into the cornerstone of revitalized neighborhoods, allowing us to meet our affordable housing needs, but also to close the economic gap. Most folks hold their wealth in a property, and we're gonna make sure that we level the playing field should I get elected mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Norman, 75 seconds to you, same question. Describe North Tulsa's situation and tell us something you will do to address the vast inequalities and inequities north of I-244.
Well, I have been up to North Tulsa many times. I held a town hall up there at Timothy Baptist Church in which we brought community leaders in, and I listened to them. And I asked them this question. I said, you can have a seat at my table anytime you want, but what I want is a seat at your table. I want to listen to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear the ideas you have. North Tulsa has been the dumping ground of projects that are not wanted anywhere else, and that has to stop. It's simply unacceptable. But what we can do, there are great opportunities up there. There are things called TIF districts. There's some already in existence, but I'm for expanding those TIF districts. And real quickly, what a TIF does for you, let's say you have a property that's it's run down a bit and maybe it's worth $50,000. You need a $50,000 loan. You get a $50,000 loan, that property is now worth $100,000. You pay off that loan by paying your taxes because your taxes have now increased to $100,000 to a property at $100,000. That pays off the bond, and you end up with a property worth $100,000. Ultimately, the city ends up with more revenue coming in, and so I would support expanding the TIF district program, and I think that'll bring some real economic development to Tulsa North.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Keith, same question to you, 75 seconds. Describe North Tulsa's situation, and what are you going to do to address the inequities and inequalities between the two areas of town?
All right. There are any number of issues, some that I consider low-hanging fruit, and that is all of the dogs running wild in the streets where people are afraid to walk their neighborhoods. We have to address that. We have a lot of lights out in North Tulsa. Again, that's something we can do. It's easy, and everybody complains about that. And we need to get additional workforce. We're 130 police officers short, and we want to make sure that every single neighborhood has the coverage they need. But there is, amazing things on the horizon. For instance, the Kirkpatrick Heights plan is out there, and I can't wait to see that come to fruition. It's going to be a game changer. The Black Wall Street condos. The Comanche Park apartments are coming out of the ground, and these are going to be transformative for that area, and we all know what that looked like before. And I know of a developer who's been working in the Crutchfield area and taking house by house. He is transforming that, and we can help him do more with what he has already done by making it easier for him to get through the permitting and inspections process at our city and opening a remote site for permitting, and I plan to do those things.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Norman, I have the next question for you, 75 seconds. The Bynum administration has taken the position in multiple court cases that the city still has jurisdiction to adjudicate municipal criminal offenses such as traffic tickets. But the 2020 U.S. Supreme Court decision in McGirt v. Oklahoma means that Tulsa's boundaries are within the Muskogee and Cherokee reservations, at least for purposes of criminal jurisdiction. Stay tuned. And tribes have argued that Tulsa cannot adjudicate traffic offenses and the like against tribal citizens. You're an attorney. If you become mayor, will your administration continue to pursue criminal jurisdiction over tribal citizens in Tulsa?
Yes, absolutely. To not do that is to invite chaos into the city. You can't have people, just because they have a different license plate, be able to drive differently in the city and break the law. If someone's here from Kansas and they're speeding, we expect our police to pull them over and give them a ticket. And so we have to do that same thing. There are ways that we are now cross-deputizing between the tribes and the city, and we need to continue that. Quite frankly, the tribes are not set up yet to be able to, one, they don't have enough officers to enforce the law. Secondly, their court system isn't set up yet with a robust enough system to be able to prosecute all of those. So we have to work together. Now, we do need to sit down. We need to have communication with each other. The tribal leaders need to communicate with the city, and the city needs to communicate with them. We need to have a mutual understanding. We need to have agreements in place so that there's no confusion out there on the streets. But I think if we work together, there's no reason why we can't share jurisdiction out there, and there's no reason why someone can be treated differently under the law. We all ought to be treated equally under the law.
Thank you. And I just want to be clear, tickets can be written. It's the adjudication, what court, what jurisdiction we're talking about. Commissioner Keith, same question to you. If you are to become mayor, will your administration continue to pursue the criminal jurisdiction over tribal citizens in Tulsa in this manner?
So I think my relationships with the nations will be helpful. We need to get on the same page. I can promise you, they don't like having all this disparate laws in place. They want us to all work well together. So that's sitting down and talking with them. We have amazing leadership in our nations, and I respect that leadership, and I want to work with them. As far as the courts are concerned, if we build a new county courthouse, or when we do, I've even talked with them about a potential tribal court, and Chief Hoskins called it a pan-tribal court. So I think there are ways that we can work together to make life better for all of the citizens and make it easier for them to navigate the legal issues that they might face. So, and of course, the cross-deputization is very important, but these are things that we can work through, absolutely sitting down at the table.
I just want to ask, though, would you continue the current administration's legal position that the city of Tulsa has authority to adjudicate such offenses?
Yes, I think we have the authority to do that, but I want to sit down with our chiefs, with the nations, and talk about the best path forward. And I believe that we can come to some consensus and maybe get rid of that, the legal issues.
Thank you so much. Representative, same question to you. I'm not going to repeat it. I think you know it by now in the legislature.
Yeah, the direct answer to the question is no. Tulsa is the largest city in the country that's all Indian reservation. And what I know from my 8 years in the legislature and the attacks against tribes over those years, what I know is tribal sovereignty can't be something you're for when it's convenient. It has to be something that you stand on all the time, and it's been settled in law already. And so that is the reason why the very first thing in this campaign I talked about co-governing with our tribal nations, and that starts with the appointment of the first ever Director of Tribal Policy and Partnerships that will have a role in the mayor's office. And yes, we're going to collaborate, and yes, we're going to get past all this, but we're not going to make it up when we get there. It's what we've been talking about since we started this campaign, not simply because I like tribes, not simply because any of that kind of stuff, but the fact is, it is the law. It is the law, and we're going to make sure we drop those lawsuits, and we're going to make sure we get on the business with building a community where the city and the tribes are on the same page with somebody in the office who's going to ensure that we always are.
Aaron, you have the next question.
Our next question, we begin with Commissioner Keith. One of the Tulsa Police Department's latest innovations is the Incident Response Team, which staffs each Tulsa PD division with a mental health professional who can assist officers on calls during the day and into the early evening. But the program is not staffed 24/7, which means some officers on some shifts do not have IRT support for mental health calls. What is your understanding of this program, and do you believe the benefits outweigh what could be significant costs for a 24/7 expansion?
One of my top priorities will be to make sure that we have the ART teams in place 24/7. It's super important because our firefighters will interface with family and children's services, therapy, and so you're dealing with the homeless in a way that is, it's nurturing and will actually help get them to a better place. So that's super important to me that we expand that to 24/7. It will be worth every penny. Can you imagine that we're sending fire trucks on these calls? The problem with that is it's wear and tear on our roads, it's wear and tear on these super expensive engines. And if there is a fire and that engine is needed, it cannot leave until that issue is resolved. So I am 1,000% in favor of expanding the ART teams. It makes sense for all of us. It makes sense for those individuals experiencing homelessness, and it certainly makes sense for our firefighters.
Representative Nichols, what is your understanding of the Incident Response Team? Do you believe the benefits outweigh the cost to be 24/7?
Yeah, I think the cost of not doing it is one thing we can't tolerate. So I absolutely will make sure that it is available 24 hours. The reality is that so many of the issues that we find in our community, where we're talking about homelessness or public safety or domestic violence, there's an undertow of mental health issues, and we got to make sure we're taking care of people. And so I will absolutely make sure that we have the resources available so that team continues to operate and continues to operate well. I'll also say my dad was a police officer. Not every call requires law enforcement, or should, and I think police officers would agree with that. And I think the most important thing that we can do in this community is to make sure that when people call for help, they get the help that they need, not simply the help that we feel like sending them. And I think that's critical for us to do.
Mr. Van Norman, what is your understanding of the Incident Response Team, and do you believe the benefits outweigh the cost to go 24/7?
I believe there are benefits for sure. I would suggest, first of all, that on the 911 calls that we add a fourth category to it. Right now, it's police, fire, or a medical issue. I would suggest we add a mental health issue to that as well, that you can go directly that way, and it will just increase efficiency. There's another number you can dial right now. I believe it's 211, but most people don't know that, so they dial 911 anyway. What I would suggest is a walk before you run approach, and I would encourage to have mental health professionals on call. It doesn't do good in the middle of the night if people are sleeping to have mental health professionals there getting paid full-time for something that doesn't necessarily need to be full-time. So what I would do is start off with an on-call process, allow people to call in, assess that, and determine, is this needed on a full-time basis? Otherwise, I feel like we're wasting taxpayers' money by having people available that aren't responding to any of the crises.
Thank you very much. I think that's the end of round two. Give them a round of applause. And since we're here at Canes for round three, I decided we had to have a music pun. So our title for this round is Living on Campaign Time. And this is where we're going to ask a question tailored to each of your campaigns. The timing's a little different. You'll have 60 seconds to answer when we ask you. Then your opponents will each have 30 seconds, and we'll come back to you for a closing 30 seconds. Aaron, we switched this right before the debate. You have the next question.
We're going to begin with Mr. Van Norman. My understanding is that you moved here to Oklahoma about 3 years ago. In 2013, you ran for the Virginia House of Delegates as a conservative independent whose campaign website said, marriage should be between one man and one woman. In the context of welfare reform and social services, you wrote that, quote, making families struggle together is healthy, both for the family and society. And in a speech this year at Sheridan Church, you referred to a need to get back to the idea that public officials must be Christian. What is your response to people who think you haven't lived here long enough to lead the city, and that some of your statements may carry questionable undertones?
Well, there's a lot to that question. I should get more than 60 seconds. But first of all, we first came to Tulsa in 2008 when our son came here to attend ORU. They now live in Midtown, and so we have been to the community significantly over the time. We decided to come here and retire and live the rest of our lives here because we believe in Tulsa, believe in the importance of Tulsa. With respect to my position, one, it was taken out of context on, no, I don't believe that people have to be Christians to serve in office. That would be crazy. What I do believe is that my Christian values inform who I am, and they allow me to make good decisions that are compassionate, that are loving, that are caring, and that are in the best interest of other people. And so to paint me as that far-right crazy person is just inappropriate. I'm a business person. I know what it takes to succeed in business, and I will bring those values from my Christian faith to everything I do.
Commissioner Keith, as longtime residents of the city, what are your thoughts about Mr. Van Norman's recent move to Tulsa?
Well, actually, I think Mr. Van Norman's had some pretty good ideas. I do think it's interesting that he came here on the Tulsa Remote program. And I'd love to hear some more about that. But I think it's very interesting, but I think he's had some good ideas, and I'm happy that he and his family love Tulsa.
Representative Nichols, 30 seconds.
Yeah, look, I guess it's a great indication that if you move to Tulsa very quickly, you can be a part of the decision-making tree here in this community. So that's good for him. But what I will say is, I think it is sometimes tough when you start a debate and you call somebody a liberal Democrat, and then you say, I'm not a far-right guy. And I'm not saying that that's what he is, but I'm saying that's why we have to be careful about that. I think more importantly than anything, whether you're new, been here forever, the most important thing is how we're going to live together in this community, and I'm glad Mr. Van Norman is here.
Thank you, Monroe. Thank you, Karen.
Mr. Van Norman, 30 seconds to you to respond to their responses.
Sure. So if you look at Oklahoma City, they have a weak mayor and they have a city manager that's the CEO of the city. If Oklahoma City were looking for a new city manager, which would be their CEO, they wouldn't look necessarily for someone that was in the city for 25 or 30 years. They would do a nationwide search and find the best person capable of running the city. In Tulsa, the mayor is the city manager, is the CEO. So the majority of the job description is like the city manager in Oklahoma City. So why would you not pick someone that has that experience in order to run the city?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Keith, I have the next question to you, 60 seconds. The Family Center for Juvenile Justice is under scrutiny surrounding alleged systemic abuse against children. Since these allegations have surfaced, you and other Tulsa County commissioners have largely said the situation caught you off guard. But at last week's forum hosted by the Tulsa World, you brought up your efforts to build the new Family Center for Juvenile Justice as one of your big accomplishments. On the one hand, it seems like you want some credit for building the facility. On the other hand, you've suggested that a district judge, a state agency, and even the legislature may have had more responsibility to know about the problems than you. So what do you say to voters who might think that you're trying to have it both ways?
Fair question.
60 seconds.
All right. First of all, I am proud it is a world-class facility. But I think you should also know that we found out about this at the same time that you did. And I am appalled and heartbroken at what is going on there because nobody has worked harder to do right by our young people in this community. And there is a lot of misinformation about what happened and what is happening in that facility. So here are some facts I want to share with you. For 50 years, the district judges have run our facility under the supervision of another state agency, the OJA. And we found out about those latest allegations at the same time that you did. And I will say this, we got a letter from the judge saying, I don't want to do this anymore. We have taken it over. And it's not something we want to do forever, but we have to do what is in the best interests of the children. OJA is in there with us every day. And just yesterday, we got a report that they are very pleased with how things are going. And one of them even said, hey, Mr. Parker's kind of cool. So that some of the kids said that. So it's a big job. There's a lot of work to do, but we are committed to doing right by these kids.
Thank you very much. Representative Nichols, you have been critical about this, but you're in the legislature. What have you learned about why OJA did not step in earlier?
Yeah, look, I've talked to the director. What the director told me is they weren't quite aware of all the things that were happening. But I know they did make the commissioners aware 2 years ago. I know they made them aware about things a year after that. And what I also know is when you're mayor, hold on, I also know when you're mayor, you can't wake up and say something's not your job. And so at one point when it was convenient, I did it. Another point, I don't know anything about it. And now I'm able to remove the director. So I don't know which one of those things it is. But what I do know is since this started, there's not been one time any county commissioner, including Commissioner Keith, who I like very much, who has said anything compassionate about what those kids went through, told us what they were going to do about it at any point in time, and I think that is a real tragedy in this situation.
Mr. Van Norman, 30 seconds to you on this topic. What are your thoughts? Let's keep this going.
If you want to find the facts, I would encourage you to go out. There's a group called Appleseed that has put together a very thorough documentation that goes back 4 years. They've done an outstanding job doing that. I think what you will find is there was knowledge a long time before the rest of us knew about it, and that this egregious situation continues. They locked up the sex offenders, but they left everybody else in place that was still there abusing those kids. I think it's egregious. Even as mayor, I think you take responsibility for something that's in your territory. No more excuses.
Commissioner, thank you very much. Commissioner, 30 seconds back to you. What is your response to some of the things that were said?
Let's go back to the facts. Last year, the Juvenile Center was put on probation, and OJA was in there monitoring day after day, month after month. In December, OJA said everything is good, and we are turning it back over to the Bureau. And at that point, we were relying on a state agency to say that things were good in that Bureau. A few months later, we find out the issues that they're just horrific. They are horrific if these allegations prove true. So we are doing our best. The serious individuals working on this program we're doing the hard work to try to make things right. And we have somebody who's a state representative who decided, he says, I was there immediately when I found out. Well, he found out at the first of the month, and it was 3 weeks later when he had his appointment with the OJA. But what did he do? The day before he met, he issues his manifesto, then meets with OJA before he even finds out the real facts. They gave him some ideas of things to follow up on. They never heard from him again. He just got his political talking points, and that's what he wanted.
That is a
Okay,
lie.
so I told every candidate before we got started, if there were some things that were said about them that they get a chance to respond. I'm going to try to be very fair in my time here.
Yep.
30 more seconds, and I mean 30 to you,
Yeah.
Representative.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would expect for somebody who's a named defendant in a lawsuit that said they perpetuated the environment where that happened. Yeah, I did have some time in between, but I can tell you if it was 3 weeks, that is a lot shorter than 2 years. And so at the end of the day, you can say whatever you want to about me coming late to the party or anything like that. The fact is, you knew that there were problems in 2022 and 2023. And now even today, there are still things coming out of that center, and you're now saying it's okay. It's not, Karen. It's not okay. It is not okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Norman. I want to give you 30 more seconds, maybe 20.
No, I'll defer to the next
You're good?
question.
Okay, then Commissioner, I want to come back to you. I gave him some more time. Close us out, 15 seconds.
All right, I have been in the facility. I was in there Monday. OJA has been in there just about every single day, and we are getting good reports. We're moving the needle, and I look forward to getting an equilibrium back in this facility and hopefully turning it back over to the district judges and a judge who will want to do the job.
Thank you very much. Aaron, you have the final question of round 3.
For Representative Nichols at the Tulsa World Forum last week, you were asked to identify key accomplishments within your legislative record. You responded that people should look at all of your record. So we did take a look at your voting record this year, and we noticed you had the 3rd highest percentage of missed votes, according to Legis OK, a bill tracking company. You missed 36% of House floor votes. What do you say to voters who worry you might seek an even higher office and be absent 1/3 time as your mayor?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There's 2 things. One, I was running this campaign, but also I have a whole other job at Strive Together. And the fact is, there's a lot of times in the legislature, we have a lot of votes. There may be a day where you have 80 votes, for example, and if you miss a day on the 80-vote day, there's a lot that comes through. But what I want to make sure that people understand is when you're a state representative, unlike a county commissioner, you don't have a chief deputy to go vote for you if you're not there. And so, yes, I'm glad that accountability is there, and certainly, like many of my colleagues, we miss votes from time to time. But it's not because I'm out doing something that's fun and all that kind of stuff. I'm every day representing people, whether it be as a state representative, whether it be on the campaign trail, or whether it be in my role at Strive Together. We're working every day to put 4 million kids in this country on the road to economic mobility.
Mr. Van Norman, you were a late entry into this race, so what have you had to balance while campaigning?
Well, I still have a few part-time jobs as well. I'm a professor at Liberty University's online program. I have a I have a client, and I'm also on the board of a public fund. So I've had to balance those things as well as being out on the campaign trail. I think you do have to prioritize being there to let your voice be known and vote. I think that's probably one of the highest callings that you have as an elected official. And if you're missing time there, you better have a really good reason for not being there.
Commissioner Keith, your thoughts?
Well, I've been a county commissioner and been trying to keep the wheels on for that job, as well as going out into the community and talking and listening to individuals who have had issues and what are their ideas, how do we fix it? And I have a group of developers who are working with me. And I've told them this committee will be coming together shortly. I've said, look, you can bring your complaints, but you must also bring some solutions so we can work together to fix the issues that they have with permitting. So I've been very, very busy, I will admit that, but I tell you, most of it has been exhilarating because I love meeting people where they are, finding out what their issues are, and working with them to make things better.
And Representative Nichols, 30 more seconds to close?
Sure. You know, I guess I'll end with this. You know, and when I was at the legislature this year, let's talk about the time that I was there, which one thing I did was co-author the bill to bring the levy funding here to Tulsa, the $50 million. Another thing I did was co-author the bill to improve retirement for police officers. Another thing I did was work as a co-author to pass the Survivors Act. So I spent my time in Oklahoma City really, really well. And I look forward to spending my time really, really well in the mayor's office as well.
Commissioner Keith, you're asking for 15 seconds. I don't know if I'm going to regret it, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Very quickly, I do appreciate that Representative Nichols came out and walked the levee and tried to understand what was going on there. But when the vote came out of committee, he did what's called walk the vote. And it concerned me for a minute, but I'm just saying.
I got to give you 15 seconds in response, Representative.
With my 15 seconds, I'm going to say that Commissioner Keith does not know how the legislature works. I did not walk a vote on a bill that I was a co-author on. Doesn't happen that way. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, thank you very much.
That concludes our final round of questions. Let's give the candidates a round of applause.
Yeah, a round of applause. There we go. We still have closing statements. It's a good time for me to mention that our friends at the Frontier will be helping now Non-Doc and KJRH with fact checks post-debate, so we'll try to find out what's going on. Closing statements, 2 minutes to each of you, same order as before. Mr. Van Norman, 2 minutes to close for you.
Well, again, thank you for being here tonight. I think you've had an opportunity to hear the vision we have for this community and the ways in which we're going to try to solve them. I would suggest that both of my opponents here believe the way to solve most of these problems is by growing government, by adding departments, by increasing costs, and what I would refer to as maybe a bloated government. My idea is much different than that. I believe in the free market system. I believe in streamlined government that serves you and doesn't smother you. A few weeks ago when I announced my campaign, my grandson, 6-year-old grandson Wolfie, asked me, "Papa, why are you running for mayor?" I said, "Buddy, it's because I want you to love growing up in Tulsa. I want you to love it so much that you decide to stay here and raise your family here." I think that's something probably all of this in this room can identify with, that we want to have a legacy in Tulsa. But remember that the mayor of Tulsa is the CEO of the city. And so I'm going to end today in much the same way I began, by asking you a question. Let's say that you are responsible or own a business that has $1 billion of revenue a year, that has over 3,500 employees, and your task is to find the next CEO of the city, or of the business. Who would you trust to lead it? Would you trust a seasoned professional that's had over 40 years of business experience that's meaningful and that's real world? Or would you trust a Democratic politician? Those are the choices in this upcoming election. The way you answer that question through your vote on August 27th will define Tulsa's future. Choose wisely, my friends.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Norman. Commissioner Keith, you have 2 minutes to close.
Or would you want somebody who has experience, doesn't need training wheels to find her way around? I will tell you this, I am so proud to call Tulsa home. And I have the experience to hit the ground running. I have relationships with a lot of people, and relationships matter when you want to move the needle. The city councilors, tribal leaders, the county commissioners, and our Chamber of Commerce. I want to build upon this administration's successes, but I have my own ideas, and I look forward to moving our city forward. There are some projects that we need. We need a new convention hotel. We lose business every single solitary day because we are turning away business that would love to come here because of all the amazing things that we have. You can find out a whole lot more about me if you want to go to KarenKeith.org. And of course, you can call or text me because half of the people in this city and county have my cell phone number, and I am there for you. And I look forward to working with all of you because as Tulsans, we know how to work together and get things done. And I want to know what you think is the next greatest thing for our city, and I want to work with you to make that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And the final 2-minute closing statement, Representative Nichols.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you everybody who helped put this on tonight, and thank you all for being here, and certainly the folks that are watching at home. Look, when I started this campaign, as I said before, we started talking about issues, and we've talked about issues the entire time. I do have the experience to run this city as mayor. I have the education to run the city as mayor too. I have a master's in public administration, the only person on this stage that has one. But I have the experience. I have the experience, and I've proved it over and over and over again. And if we just think about the contrast in this race, so far, we've been all running for a while. I've almost been running for as long as Brent's been in town. But we've been running for a while. We've been running for a while. And what do we know so far about the candidates in this race? We have one that's a named defendant in a federal lawsuit. We have one who may think that you have to be Christian to be an elected official. And then you got one that's only talked about issues the entire time. Now, I think that, I'm gonna say right now, I think that both Brent and Karen are good people who love this community, and you couldn't convince me otherwise. But we're talking about who's gonna serve as mayor. And we have a person who is great, but not been here long enough to fully understand the issues. We have somebody else who's been in office double the amount of time that I've been in office, who's come to maybe just admire those challenges that we have. We have to elect a mayor who's ready to meet them as soon as they get into office. Then I'm ready to meet them. It's been said today that putting things on paper don't matter. Putting things on paper is about accountability. Putting things on paper is making a commitment. Coming up at a debate and trying to think of things that you can say for folks that they'll clap for you is not how you run a city. You run a city with a plan and a vision, and if you elect me, we're gonna go and win the next decade and put Tulsa on the move. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. Give each of the candidates a round of applause. Remember to vote on August 27th. Thank you so much to the Tulsa Regional Chamber. Thank you all for believing in public debates. Thank you to our fabulous staff at Canes. Tip your dang bartender if you have any class. It doesn't cost a lot. And stick around, we've got a surprise. Snake and the Charmers, a band in about 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you all, good night.
Thank you.